Hey everybody, it's Stippling Vaughn, and as you can see, I have not done too much more from the last time I did this. I worked on it yesterday or Sunday at the bar, went home, started to work on it, and then just life. So I haven't worked on this since Sunday. But before I go into inking this and talking about the comics that I've posted this week, um, tonight on Don's Draws, the studio, he's gonna have Dan Panosian on. And this originally was the page or how I was going with what I was working on. So we have Prophet diving off the side, diving into panel with his sword, and he's diving into all these spears and everything. Well, I looked at it and I didn't care for the composition. Okay, um, I didn't like how he's so big and like literally he's right there as the threat. I wanted more distance between him and the spears. So I actually redrew it. So what we have here is I've redrawn it. Here is Prophet. I still got to finish the hair. I'm not crazy about how the hair is going, but got to finish the hair, got to finish the hand. But you can see where we got it different. We've got distinct distance between him and here. So we feel like he's falling in against it. He's diving into this threat, and we've got all the different spears and swords. You can even see where I put a lightsaber in. I don't know if I'm going to keep the lightsaber or not, but got a toothpick being thrown, and we got an arrow here. So that's where I'm sitting at with it, and I like it. I like how it's going. I just kind of finished some stuff on this, and then this will be ready now tonight on the studio. Uh, whether I'm allowed on the stream or not, I will be inking this during the show, and you can see the reason why I'm putting all the pencil work in is so I can just do only thing I can do. Only thing I will be doing during the show is the inking. If Don allows me on the show, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to be the way I normally stream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be down. I'm going to actually be on the kitchen counter, and I'll have the drawing flat on the board. I'll have the camera parallel to it, and then I'll have lights on the other side shining in. So that way you can see the inking as the show goes on, so you can watch the progress. So that's the game plan if I'm allowed on the studio. If I'm not, I'll probably still be working down there so I can post images quickly. So, but maybe I am, maybe I won't. I don't know. So, but I will be doing that. So, well, let's get back to this piece. And while I'm doing this, um, keep in mind the image, the when I talk each week about the books I'm posting them on X. I'm not posting them on Facebook. I'm only posting them on X. And so when I'm talking about them, if you go to X and you follow me on X under Stippling V, and you will see every single day I'm posting an image of the books that I'm posting, and that way you can like them, you can comment. So, and of course, also like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Helps me out. So, this is week 13 of Signed Comics, and day 82 is Green Lantern, issue number 172. This was actually the very first Green Lantern comic book I ever bought. Now, I was a fan of Green Lantern when they did the Challenge of the Super Friends. I didn't like the voice of the voice actor for Green Lantern, but I really liked Green Lantern. So, and then I was buying the Justice League of America comic book, which then eventually I got me into picking up Green Lantern off the spinner rack. This was the first issue I ever picked up, and so the reason why the reason why I picked it up and bought it was because I just knew it as one Green Lantern, as in Hal Jordan. I never knew that he was part of a Green Lantern Corps, and there was a bunch of Green Lanterns. I never knew that. So when I saw that, I was like, "Oh wow, this is so cool! Look at all these different aliens that have the same power." So that's what prompted me to buy this issue. So when I had the opportunity to meet Dave Gibbons, that's the reason why I had him sign this specific issue, is because it was my first Green Lantern comic. So that's the reason why. And so I had to have him sign it. It's my first one, and you know how it is. Do you have when you have to go into your collection and decide what you're going to have signed? I always go towards a sentimental reason. Is there a specific reason why I want this book signed over this one? I'm always going to go with the sentiments of, oh, well, this is the book that got me to buy the book on a regular basis. So, but so that's the reason why. So, like I said, Dave Gibbons signed it. Very happy to have this in my collection. So, and then after that, we have the Green Lantern Corps issue 201. Now, issue 200 was titled Green Lantern. It was the last of the Green Lantern. What was they had the where I guess the Green Lanterns were kind of like disbanded. I don't forget what the actual specific reason was. Um, but the Green Lanterns, a group of them, were what was remaining, and they settled on Earth. And so this was, instead of calling them the Green Lantern, instead of the book being called Green Lantern, it was called the Green Lantern Corps. Now, where this book is also significant is this is the very first appearance of Kilowog. And Kilowog, now keep in mind, Joe Staton created Kilowog. So whenever there's a cartoon or a movie with Kilowog in it, and almost always there'll be a Kilowog in a comic book, in a DC Green Lantern movie or TV show or whatnot, you'll always have Kilowog in it because he's such a popular character. Joe Staton makes money. He gets a royalty check from DC whenever Kilowog is used, whether it be an action figure or a movie or a video game. He gets money. So very happy for Joe that he at the time he didn't create him expecting the character to be as popular as he was and for him to make royalties off the character, but he did. So okay, I'm not going to work on that area because I don't have any of the pencils done. So we're going to go into here. So I got to switch to the other nib. Give me a second here. Let me clean this nib off, and then we'll get into the. I'm using a switch from a 102. This is a 102 nib, and we're going to switch to 109. You can see the 109 how it's got a circle, as to the 102 having an oval. It creates a completely different dot. And I always do this when I'm doing metal. I switch this because it's a much stiffer nib, and you get a different dot. And I like the dot that it puts down. So it's a very much more uniform dot, which I feel works well with doing metal. Because it gives you because metal's harsh and hard, and the dot, I feel, accentuates that. So, but so yeah, so issue 201 had that one signed. I've had that one signed for quite a few years, and I'm very glad I have it. Because this is when I was really into comic books and really like, oh my gosh, I mean, this is my childhood, and so it's nice that on top of it being my childhood comic book, Joe Staton is benefiting from it. So, and then after that we have Green Lantern Corps Quarterly issue number 6. What it was is they wanted to have a book. They used to have, I should say, in the back of Green Lantern comic book, they would have like a like the Green Lantern was only maybe like maybe like 15 pages, and then there would be like a 10-page story in the back of the book of a Green Lantern in space. It would be like an alien, and he'd have a problem they'd have to resolve. And when they started Green Lantern up, they wanted the book devoted directly to Harold Jordan, but they wanted to still have that quarterly book with different Green Lanterns. And that's where they came up with the quarterly book. It came out at once a quarter. It usually started with a bunch of rookie Green Lanterns uh, being mentored with a lot of times it was Kilowog, and Kilowog would tell them stories of Green Lanterns from the past or veteran Green Lanterns out in space, uh, doing what they had to, like solving problems. I picked this one to have signed. Jim Ballant did the artwork for the Alan Scott. This is back when they were had Alan Scott was never a Green Lantern, but he at this time after Zero Crisis or Zero Hour, he was they essentially he was de-aged, and so he had like he was young again, even though his wife was old, and he would have threats. And one of the things that was an ongoing theme throughout it was uh, an internal torment he had over the fact that because of the green flame de-aging him, he he was still the same old generation individual, but it was a strain on his relationship because his wife was still old and he had a youthful body. And this particular one, they had him where he's going up against the Harlequin. Remember, Harlequin is actually a important character to the history of Alan Scott because she was a villain of his back in the day. So, and I always feel like, and again, part of it is because if you watched one of my videos when I was doing the E's, uh, the Alan Scott that is a homosexual is from the Earth 2 series. Okay? Completely different character from the Alan Scott we've always known. And that's one thing that always bugs me, how they make it, well, Alan Scott's gay. No. The Alan Scott we've always known, he was never gay. This Alan Scott from a different Earth, different dimension, that was the gay Alan Scott. And I am like, they're not, no one's going, DC and those insist, well, he's gay now. No, 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 no. That Alan Scott was gay. This Alan Scott who was never gay. And that's the reason why I look at one of those where it's like, well, I don't collect the modern comic book where Alan Scott is gay, so you gay him up, guys. Gay him up. You're not going to get my money because the Alan Scott in the comic books that I read and enjoy, nope, he was a married man and he had 2 children. So, but yeah, I had this one. It was signed by Jim Ballant and Andrew Peepoy. And the reason, and I think that Peepoy did a great job of inking Jim Ballant. And this is before Jim Ballant. I believe this was before he even did Catwoman. So, very good job. So, but it was just getting started. So, but yeah, so that is why I picked that one to be signed. Was because of those two, because of specifically Jim Ballant sign it. I had him sign this issue. I think it was like last year, maybe 2 years ago. So, and then we move on to day 85, Guy Gardner Warrior Annual number 2. And this is like the only issue of Guy Gardner Warrior that I own. Andrew Peepoy did the inks for one of the short stories. The way they did it was like the theme throughout all of the annuals was, I think, referred to as Dead Earth. And what it was basically is it went far into the future where these DC characters were just merely myths. So it wasn't. It was like people's interpretation of who Superman was, who Wonder Woman was. So this one here, it was people envisioning who Guy Gardner was, and if I remember correctly, this issue starts out with people at the Guy Gardner Warriors bar and had all a bunch of different aliens. The cover and I think the first like 2 pages were done by Phil Jimenez, and then all the backup, all the stories. I think it was like 2 to 3. I think it was like at least 3, maybe 4 stories, talking about Guy Gardner and the characters or how people envision like he was like this and he fought this way. And none of the none of them were actually correct. They were telling stories how they knew him, kind of like how those where it's like when a story is told via orally, how the facts differ. When that's how uh, stories become myth and then become legend is because people are there was no form of documentation and there were limited forms of documentation which could be if it was done in a different language results in interpretation, and that's how you get people having varying opinions of, and that's how they treated it. So I particularly uh, had the opportunity for Andrew to sign it, and I liked this how the way they presented it, so had him sign it. So, and then we move on to Marvel, Marvel Comics, and almost every single G I have was of Generation X, Gen X. Now, the first issue that I posted, which was day 86, was I got more ink in this. Day 86 was Generation Next. Generation Next was the age of apocalypse. And this was, you'd only had about maybe like 4 issues of Generation X before they did Age of Apocalypse. So you really didn't know anything about a lot of these characters, which was nice because it gave the creators a completely clean slate as to how to present them in this hellscape. But most important, what I really liked was the Generation Next was mutants being raised and trained by Kitty Pryde and Colossus. And Colossus has discovered that his sister is alive, and she's in this uh, prison camp mine, and she's being worked to death. And he's like, "Oh my God, we gotta save him!" So he uses his students to infiltrate and to rescue his sister. And this is a completely because this is a hellscape, and Colossus cares about his sister. Really, no one else. Uh, he willingly sacrifices his students to the main bad guy called the Sugar Man. And it's funny because the Sugar Man looked like Howard Stern. So, which I find funny because Howard Stern was big during that time, and so yeah, I can see where he was like, I need a villain real quick. He probably listened to Howard Stern, and okay, and he just did it. Just had that. It was all the guy was a big nose, big lips, and hair. That's really all he said. That's really all the costume was. You look up the Sugar Man, and that's what you get when you look it up. I mean, very unimaginative, but at the same time also kind of humorous. So, but like I said, this story, like I said, Colossus completely sacrifices his students. He doesn't care if they live or die. Which again, it's like this is not the Colossus we know, but this is the Colossus from a hellscape, an alternate dimension, and to see completely the morals of these characters spun a different way completely because of that was very entertaining, very enjoyable. So, which followed it up with uh, Generation X Annual 97. Now, this was during a time they were, for whatever reason, Marvel wasn't putting numbers on their annuals. They were they were just like, okay, this came out in 1997, therefore it's annual 97, not annual 1, not annual 8, not annual 10, annual 97. So it didn't matter whether it was like uh, the Avengers or the X-Men or Captain America. This was how they did their numbering for that year. I think they did it for like 2, maybe 3 years. That's how they did it before they reverted back to giving the annuals numbers again. But this one was done by Dan Fraga, and I had him sign. I think I had Dan sign this one. This was one of the books I had chosen for him to do for him to sign when I saw him last year at Garden State. Now I'm going to be very short and to the point on this. We all know that Dan is fighting with Ethan, and Dan's getting a lot of flack, resulting in Dan stepping away, and he's no longer on the professionals. He's still a bro, he's just not on the show. I stand with Dan. Okay, I stand with him. I agree with what he with the things that he said when he was going up against Ethan. And as he put it, and we all knew it was going to happen. Ethan picked super chats over friendship, and Dan held him accountable for what he was saying, and he's being ostracized. I stand with Dan. I enjoy his draw streams, and very quickly he made it. He's making it clear that this is for entertainment. He's not going to be part of the drama, and I guess people who are going into his chat and causing drama, they're getting timed out, which I fully support. And he's doing. I enjoy his day streams. I'm going to talk about this when I see him in Garden State, which is I wish he would, after he's done his videos, have his brother go through, clip parts of the video where he's showing you how to use the tools in Procreate, and then let Dan do a voiceover, and then have like maybe not necessarily a second channel, but like a sub channel within his channel of these videos. He's very Dan is one of Dan's strengths is he is very detailed in how he provides an explanation on why he does stuff, and he doesn't just verbally explain it to you; he visually explains it to you as he's doing it. I've had issues with learning how to use Procreate, and I've had severe issues with trying to find videos on how to use Procreate. Dan has done an extraordinary job, and that's why I hope he would have like I said, a second channel or a sub channel just going over how to use the tools in Procreate. I think it's very beneficial the way he's doing it. So, unless Dan watches this video and picks up on it, I will be speaking to him about it. And here's the thing, because I'm learning, but because I'm not doing anything with Procreate right now to draw or color or ink, I'm not. I'm learning, but it's not sinking in. The way he presents it makes sense to me, and that's the big thing. Also, is it how Dan presents the information? I'm able to absorb it and understand it. Whereas a lot of these creators, when they post their videos on how to use Procreate, either they're way too fast and they're more focused on the entertainment part instead of the instruction part, or the way they're utilizing it isn't comic book related. So as a result, I'm having issues trying to translate that information over to utilizing it for doing comics. But Dan's doing a great job. And like I said, I stand with Dan. So, and that leads us to the last day of week 13, day 88. And we have issue number 2 of Generation X. Now, I enjoy Generation X much better than the New Mutants. And this has nothing to do with the writing or the artwork. Well, let's clarify. It could have something to do with the writing, but what I liked about the X Generation X was right off the bat when they were formed, uh, part of it was they had the White Witch as one of the instructors, and it's one of those where it's like, can you really trust the White Witch, Emma Frost? Or on top of that, it also had to do with the threats that the Generation X mutants were having to face. They started in the middle of the Phalanx crisis, and so before the team was even formed, they were introduced in the X-Men Uncanny X-Men titles, and they were having to fight and survive the threat. And then when they formed as students at the school, they still they were presented with real threatening scenarios. I found them much more threatening than what the New Mutants were uh, having to deal with. Plus, also, um, part of it also is that how they already had Jubilee. Jubilee was a well-established character in the Marvel Universe, and to have her not as a team leader, but as a main character on the team, um, you already had a built-in fan base for that character, so it enabled you to bring in the other characters. And so, of course, there was already conflict. Hold on, guys. I need to clean this nib. But no, if you really look at the threats that Generation X characters were going up against, as opposed to the New Mutants, I always felt that the Generation X characters were always put in much more severe situations, and I really did enjoy that. So that's the reason, and the reason why I posted this image, issue 2, as opposed to issue 1, is because it introduced I think this red character, Penance. I really liked this character, how she was like really like didn't speak, didn't really, almost had a childlike infant or toddler mentality. Kind of understood but didn't understood. Almost like kind of almost like I hate to say it, like a pet dog. Dog kind of understands what's going on but doesn't, or doesn't know how to react. So, and I just liked how they presented how they maintained this character. I have no idea what they did to her. Most likely, as I understood it, they killed off most of the Generation X characters, which is a shame. So, but uh, the early run by Chris Bachalo, and here's the thing also, the reason why I had Chris Bachalo sign this issue as opposed to his later issues is because I like I like his style during this time. When he went to a much more cartoony style, slightly like animated style, he states that from when I spoke to him, he said it was a choice. I wonder if he picked it because the cartoony style was much easier to maintain that style for a monthly book. And even though he had a lengthy history with meeting deadlines with Changeling, a Vertigo title, let's be honest, when he went to the cartoony style, you look at it and you can tell that it was easier to maintain the it was easier to maintain deadlines while maintaining a level of quality. So, but that's the reason why I picked that book, is I prefer the early issues that he did. So, okay, so we got the metal done here. We got the metal done in his thighs. Um, let's see here. We can get Look at that. That'll look better. So, but that's the week of week 13. Like I said, tonight is the Studio Don draws. Hopefully, I will be on when he has Dan Panosian on. But if not, I will be inking along with him. So even if I'm not on the show, I will be inking along in and posting and sending him DMs for him to show everybody. So you guys all have a great day. You know I'm having a great day. And remember, life is stressful. Just take it all one dot at a time.